teaching you today on how to sell your listings. Go get listings. Cameron will teach you how to sell them. If you have any questions for me, let me know. I'll be around the office the rest of the day. Thank you for being here. And we will look at homework on Monday. And remember, by Friday, 50, 50, 50, 10. Good?
But on Thursday, remember?
Oh yeah, I forgot to say. Thank you, Tyler. Thursday is our second opportunity day of the month. We're going to be getting together in this room at 9 a.m. I've got stacks and stacks and stacks of people we can call and talk to about real estate. The goal is 100 dial day. We don't have to have 100 phone call conversations, 100 dials in a day. I encourage you all to come play. It is more fun than you can even imagine.
That's
okay?
a Thursday at 9?
Thursday at 9, this Thursday at 9, yep. We'll be going until about 12:30, 1 o'clock. And if we still have dials to make, we'll hang out a little longer.
We should make it 250.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
I did 70 the other day.
We're struggling to get 10.
Right
now.
see, here's
No,
the
we're not
thing.
talking about
I'll give you the
competition.
why behind this. I'm gonna give you the why behind it. The first thing we do is we get in the habit of lead generation. Then we set a couple of days aside to push ourselves in lead generation. I've never made 100 dials in a day. Let's make 100 dials, okay? And then we're gonna do that for maybe a month or two. And then come March, maybe the first opportunity day of the second quarter, we're gonna go for the bold 100. That's 100 conversations in a day. So we start out with 100 dials, we get to where that's easy, and then we go to 100 contacts. So that's the method behind the madness, or the madness behind the madness, one of the two. Anyway, I can stand up here and hear my own voice for the next hour and a half. I had my chance last week. Thank you all for being here. Oh, and then, I always forget this in the last moment. Feather a sign sheet. That's all you can.
Oh, we're good?
Yeah, I'm just gonna find a sign sheet.
Cool. Hey guys.
How are you doing?
Doing well. You have name tags?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Could you pull those out?
Oh, shnikes. Not with me.
You don't have that, okay, it's just that I'll ask you for your name a couple of times. Yeah, right.
I wondered why my bag wasn't heavy enough. My binder's not.
All right, awesome. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Who am I? My name is Cameron Burnside. I've been a real estate agent for 16 years now. I've been with Keller Williams for 7 of those years. Started with a little brokerage down in Eastern County and came over here. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Dave is an amazing coach. I met a coach before. He does a really, really good job. So thanks, Dave. Okay, so I'm excited to be here today. I've really, really been passionate about the subject we'll be talking about, which is listings. So I always like to start off by saying, what are the expectations of this class? Because you guys are dedicating your hard-earned time, and Russ, you've been in my class before, right? Who else has been in my class? No one else? Okay, so just Russ? Good to see you. So we're gonna go ahead and start off by saying, you've been in my class before, haven't you? Oh, never. I would remember you. Yeah. I want to start off by saying, what is it that you want to get out of this class? Because what I have seen in the past is that when people come into a class and they sit there and they say, all right, I have certain expectations and things I want to pull from it. And if some of those aren't met, you can still learn things, but it's a little bit of a disappointment still. So I want to hear from you, interaction. What are some of the things that you're expecting to get so that we can make sure that you understand, yes, we are going to go over that, or no, that's not something in the class. And we can create this little list so that at the end of the day, after we finish, if we can check these things off, we'll say, that was a successful day, we spent our time well today. So go ahead. What's your name?
Tyler.
Tyler.
The listing from the start to finish, basically, the listing forms, when do you do it, how does that look? Like, you knock on the door. Yes, I'd love to sell my house. Great, come on in. Let's get this going. Okay. What do you do?
Process.
So you said a lot there, right?
Yeah.
And I'd like to pare that down just so that we're understanding. Today, we're going to be talking about 3 main pieces of that. Tyler, you said kind of from start to finish, we're going to get 3, because obviously you have to prospect in order to get that person. So that knock on the door, we're not going over that.
Right.
Right?
Right.
The CMA, we're not necessarily going over that.
Right.
To go over numbers. we're going over 3 specific pieces. We're gonna be going over marketing, staging, and customer service, which are 3 of the most important of this process, but not the whole thing. Fair enough?
Sounds good.
Okay, so if we don't go over any prospecting or section handling, you're not gonna walk out. Okay, so I'm just gonna put, so we're not gonna put that, because now we know what the expectation is there. Who else? This will be a real easy class, and really short.
Okay.
Marketing, okay, so we're gonna go over that, okay, that's good.
About maybe negotiations,
Negotiations in which regard?
like how you talk to a buyer's agent. I know, cause I've done it
Okay.
with you.
Oh, yeah,
But-
so
But I
negotiate.
like how you were like very smooth and calm and, you know, firm and persuasive. I don't know if you.
That was a heck of a testimonial. Thank you for saying that. Smooth calm. So we're gonna be talking about, that's a really important piece that can come up. We're gonna be dealing a little bit more on the listing part of things.
Mhm.
And so when we get towards the end, if we have some time left over, we can certainly maybe talk about specific things on negotiation, because negotiations, if you don't have that, then you really do find yourself in a bad position at some point. Make sense? Okay, does anybody else? So Russ will talk about marketing, put that up here. Okay. What's your name?
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Phoenix, what is it that you're expecting or wanting to get out of this class today?
I guess like why property wouldn't sell.
Say it again.
Like why property wouldn't sell.
Why property would sell? Okay, good, I like that. So Phoenix. And I know my handwriting is less than ideal. Rick was thinking it. So we're just gonna put why or not, why not the property sell. We will definitely hit some of those points.
And staging.
Okay? Thanks, Phoenix, for being forced to answer a question. Okay, who else? Emily, you've got something you want to say?
I don't, actually, I don't even have my license yet, so I'm just, whatever you have to offer, I'll.
5 minutes, we could give one piece and you'd be happy?
Yeah.
Easy, okay.
I'm excited to figure out how to put together a CMA, and then I would assume like pricing objections, is that where somebody thinks that their house is maybe worth a different amount, and how to get past that conversation?
So that is a very important piece as well. We're not gonna be covering that here.
Okay.
Okay? Because that's gonna get into the objections, and that is a part of the, for sure, of the listing presentation that's coming up. So, what was your name?
Melanie,
Melanie, you have, oh,
I'm hiding today.
okay, got it. Melanie, what was
Yeah.
your,
No, remind us the 3, marketing, staging, and
and customer service?
customer service. Ready to roll, those sound good.
Cool. Anything else? Okay,
Oh,
this is gonna be easy.
I really don't know.
Oh, it's clean as water. Okay,
Wait, I'm sorry, what is the, what section are we doing? Cellular.
6. Our order
They
is mixed
flipped.
up just a hair, because the guy who's going to be doing this class today can't do it till Friday, so we flipped.
Selling your listing?
Sell your listings, is what it's called.
Okay,
Good.
I have different objectives.
So sorry about that.
No, it's okay,
I thought David said something earlier.
They did, there was an email that went out.
Oh, okay, good.
thanks.
So,
You're fine. You got it?
No.
Oh, no.
so she's obviously not paying attention.
Yeah.
Call
You
her
can
out.
tell me about all the emails I don't see, there's probably 10.
Okay, so I do feel like I'm pretty well equipped, I guess you could say, to have experience. Over the last several years, our team has sold over between 150 and 130 properties. I'm the listing agent on our team, so I'll sell between about 55 and 65 listings for myself. I have, in the last maybe 3 years, had one property that didn't sell, that went up on the market. So the thing I'm gonna be sharing with you guys today, because here's the thing, there's a lot of good content in the Ignite class. I don't go through everything. I'm not going to, we're gonna pull from it. My objective though is to share with you as much as I can that I know real world experience has helped me. And what was your name again? Sabrina. Have you been in one of my classes? Okay, that's what I thought. I'm going to share with you as much as I can that I think is real world, and there'll be some things in here that we don't go over. However, if there's certain things that you're saying, I really have a question about this or would like to know, by all means, let me know, because we'll talk about it. So, I do have a couple of rules or things I would like to ask of you. You have dedicated some hard-earned time now that you're in this class. And so, number one, participation. It's always good to ask questions. And feel free, if I'm going along and if you feel like you haven't understood something fully, there's a really good chance that someone else is in that same boat. So don't be afraid to ask. And then I would say, for the next hour, hour and a half or so, do whatever you can to give me your time and your attention. Now, I understand things are crazy, and so you might have to take a call or do something emergency. If you could maybe just step out while you're doing that, because I know this when people are on email or when they're texting or when they're on their phone, it gets distracting for me, and then it's going to affect the rest of the class. So, and I will call you out on it, and I'll ask you questions that you probably won't know the answer to. So, if you want to avoid embarrassment. All right.
I'm taking notes on my computer. There's your warning.
What was your name?
Daniel.
Daniel, so I want you every 15 minutes just to do a quick check.
Check on that.
What you're doing.
Just give you like a thumbs up or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, all the same.
He's actually my accountability partner. He's good at
Oh,
that.
good. Okay, I'm expecting. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the staging process. Now, staging means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So let's define that. And there's no wrong or right answer. If I were to say to you, what is staging? What is your definition of it? What does it mean?
Setting up a home to look appealing.
Oh, good. Okay, so that's just an overall setting up your home to make it look good. Good. What else?
Preparing it for pictures.
Preparing it for pictures?
Because that's what you want to get pictures, that's part of your marketing, making sure that they look good and you don't have big holes in the wall.
Right.
I guess like to help a buyer be able to visualize what they can do in space, or I think it helps them imagine what stuff.
So you're taking it from the Phoenix, the approach of not necessarily just from the selling side, but also from the buyer side, yeah, right, helping them see it. You should have heard that before. Anything else?
I think it's creating a feeling.
For your feeling? Oh. Okay, very all encompassing. Cool. Depersonalized. Okay, so now you're,
Good.
okay, we just went to a specific.
Mhm.
You're talking about generalizations, and these are all correct, and all of a sudden you just went to a specific on that. What, no, that's fine, that was good. Because a lot of times people, when they hear the word staging, from what, 90% of the time, I would say, people are referring to what?
The furniture.
The furniture,
Putting
right?
a table in the dining room.
Exactly. Most people's definition of staging is that, and I would say you guys have done a really good job, because most of the time when I'm in the class, that's what people will say. They'll say staging, yeah, it's renting furniture and putting it there, and that's what staging is. No, staging is everything that you guys have mentioned, and I really like some of these answers. It's creating a feeling, it's making it marketable, and that encompasses a lot of things, which then lead to decluttering and other things. So when I say staging, when people say, hey Cameron, you help people stage houses, I'll say, if you refer to making it marketable and appealing, then yes, absolutely. If you're referring to, am I going to bring in furniture to sell a house, the answer is no. So it's important to define that, because staging is one of the most important things that you're going to run into when selling a house. You can have a very sellable listing that is not staged correctly, will get less money, and it'll take longer to sell. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about 3 main categories of staging and what that entails. Because not all staging is equal, and you don't have to do the same staging on every single house, but you're running into certain guidelines that are similar, if that makes sense. So let's get into it. The first question I have is that, from an overall standpoint, do you think most sellers are excited or not to be staging a house?
If it means more money,
So if I okay, think about it, and more often than not, do people like to put in effort and work
No.
and spend? No, I would say that. So this becomes a critical piece. How many have you here so far have sold a home, have gone and taken a buyer through a home and have sold it?
my own personal home.
Your own personal home, okay? And now the next question is, how many have you sold your own personal residence or been involved in a real estate transaction? Okay, good. Have you noticed that when you've gone through certain houses, you have that question as to what was the seller thinking? Why does it look the way it does? As no one told them certain things they should be doing. Has that ever come up before? It's really, unfortunately, quite prevalent in our industry, because I think a lot of agents don't take the time, or because it's not always greeted with enthusiasm, they don't go through the process of helping sellers realize the benefits behind it. Because there are, when you're doing different staging, it can cost money. In fact, if you look, there's an interesting little statistic. Let's see if I found this right. Okay, so there's a statistic on page 14. And it says, who's a reader? Reader. Russ, can you read for me? Okay, page 14, you see those little arrows, those gray arrows?
Right.
The first sentence below that, what is that?
According to the National Association of Realtors 2015 profile of home staging, the median cost spent on staging a home is $675.
Right, so you take from that, that you are more than likely going to have a conversation that's going to cost the seller some money, and if nothing else, at least some time and effort. So that's why when you go into this, some people are not necessarily enthusiastic, but boy, if you do it right, you not only set them up for success, you set yourself up for success as well too. So let's talk about the different stages and what these different stages can mean for your seller. Before we do that though, actually I want to take a step back. Okay, realize it's going to cost more than likely money and time and energy and effort. So let's go back to the stages of selling a house. Let's suppose that you have set the appointment, Tyler, and that you have gone over and you are going to present to them. Now think this through, because this is really critical. You're going to be telling them some things that maybe they do or do not want to hear. So if I were to say to you, if you have the option of talking about the staging, at what juncture would you start talking about it after a specific thing happens?
Based on the listing.
Same contract.
Yes, exactly. Why?
Because you could make them angry.
That makes them do more work. They don't wanna do that, so they'll probably not.
Well, you never wanna call someone's baby, I think, I've heard. And you're kind of like, hey, that's a little cluttered, put it away, and that's, they're like, those are my family, I want them.
Exactly, Emily, and Russ, you're both spot on. If you have the option, that's a really, really key point, is to make sure that you're having this conversation, if you can, after the listing has been signed. Now, caveat to that. When you're in real estate, or in any sales position, a lot of different scenarios can play out, a lot of different things can happen. I use this example in my other classes, real estate is like a choose your own adventure book. Zeke, I know you know what those are. I don't know why I do, but did your dad read to you growing up? Yeah. Okay. Do you remember what choose your own adventure books were? What are they?
They're where you have options, right? As we read this story, you have an option to choose your own path as you go through. There's multiple options for you to get options.
What example would that be? You're right. What example would that be? So.
In real estate or the book?
No, in the book.
That's on the spot.
No. You gotta be good at this kind of stuff.
If you wanna go up a flight of stairs or go into a cave, something like that.
Go to page 10.
Yeah.
Or to the cave 90, right? And then you go to these different things. That's what this listing presentation is like, is a choose your own adventure book. And what I mean by that is I'm going to say one thing, and I'm going to say, unless the person says this, and then you go to the other page, okay? And that's really, really important, because let's go back to the process. I am talking to Rick about listing his house, and I'm just talking with him on the phone, I'm gonna set an appointment. One thing that it doesn't talk about in this book around the listing process is the pre-qualification. Have you guys talked about, or are you familiar with the pre-qualification process when you're listing homes? Yes, no? No?
No, we're talking about like if they are able to sell?
Yes, so I don't know if in Ignite, and if not, then it should be. When you are sitting down and getting ready to go out and spend time with the listing or with the buyer, you should get them pre-qualified. Whether, now if it's a buyer, they should be pre-qualified through a lender, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're talking to a listing, why would you work with a buyer that's not pre-qualified and then turn around and work with a seller that's not pre-qualified by you? Does that make sense? So whenever I list a property, I have a series of questions that I ask to make sure that I know that I wasn't just going to go out on a presentation. Because think about it, how long does it take involving the conversation of getting ready, preparing for that appointment, going out on that appointment, meeting with them. I mean, you can be talking 5, 6, 7 hours of your time into that, and if you have not prepared for that, really, really is doing yourself a disservice. So one of the questions that I would ask in this pre-qual process, and I'll focus on just this for right now, is what are you looking for in a real estate agent? And that's where this can become a critical piece, because you will have some people who might say, it's really, really important for me, and I'm gonna hire the agent that I feel is going to do the best job in helping me get the house ready to sell. If they've said that, I'm making a note on their file saying, I need to nail that, because if I don't, I may not get the listing, which is going to be a waste of time for all this anyway. Or they might say, man, it's just really important that I get the most money for the house, and I feel like the agent knows what he does. That's all I care about. Okay, great. So, I've had people list their property. I mean, every time, whether you list the property or you don't, it's good to call and find out why they did or why they didn't. It's one of the greatest education. I mean, you're paying for it, so that's the education that you should be gleaning from all the existing presentations as to why or why not, so you can improve and thereby and do better the next time. So I've asked people before why they list with me, and I've had some people, in fact, I remember one specific person who had said, you know, Cameron, the other agent wanted me to do all of this work and do all of these things and declutter and paint, and I just got overwhelmed and I just didn't want to have to do all that. So I listed with you then. I've had other people that have said, you know what, Cameron, I felt like you really had a game plan as to what we needed to do with everything, and you really did a good job of preparing me, knowing what to do in order to get the house sold. So that's what I was doing. So you can have diametric opinions on this as to what you should and shouldn't do. You should find out what the answers are before you take the test. Does that make sense? So if they haven't said that, and here's a good way to know in a double way, if you might say it that way. First of all, pre-qualifying. What's important to you about a real estate agent. The second piece, though, is at the house. So when you go to the house, and all of this is getting to staging, but as I said, these are pieces in the book that I think you need to know in order to set yourself up for the staging conversation. When you go in and sit down with them, one of the best lines I think is out there is a line that says, Emily, we've sat down at the dinner table and we're going to be talking about selling your house. Other than price, is there anything else that's important to you that we need to go over tonight? Other than price, is there anything else that's really important for us to go over tonight? Now, what does that set us up for? For feedback, exactly. What kind of feedback, Jojo?
Just things that are important to them, I guess, things like
Yeah.
that they wouldn't have told you, I guess, before.
Yeah.
Just things that they kind of think of at the very end.
So if I tell you, no, that's the only thing that's important to me, how are you gonna handle that? What's your emphasis, or what is your plan of attack here? What are you gonna talk about? When I've said price is only.
How to get the best price.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, let's talk about a game plan for getting that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hit price, and as soon as I'm done with that, I'm gonna say, great, does that make sense? Are we agreed on price? Yes, fantastic, let's go ahead and get the paperwork done so we get listed. Well, I wanna think about it, oh, wow, okay, it's interesting, because I know that when we had an earlier conversation, you said price was the only thing I want to talk about. So tell me, what else are you thinking of? It sets you up to be able to say, we've gone over everything that's important. Or if they say, well, Jojo, it's really critical that I wanna know what you think I should do to the house, get it ready to sell for. Because they may have not set it up on the phone, but now they tell you that in person, so now you need to say, okay, before I have the staging conversation and we list the house, I need to tell them that so they'll actually list with me. Does that make sense?
That question sets you up to be the expert too.
Mhm.
Flat out. They don't know what they don't know, they're gonna rely everything on you.
And the bonus to that is if they say no, price is the only thing, you overprice, you could be in and out of there in 10, 15 minutes as opposed to an hour and a half. So those really helps you on that side as well. Okay, all right, that was a large setup. So we've gone ahead, we have the listing signed. Now we need to go into what the levels are. First one is what I would say is basic. Now, to continue that conversation, it's paramount that you have buy-in from the clients before you have this conversation. How would you do that? How would you say, we're gonna have some hard conversations here, and what would be your thoughts on that? How would you set that up?
You can bring up timing.
Okay, how so?
That if they're concerned about timing, you know, some people say, I don't care how long it takes, I want it to sell for this price.
Yeah.
And other people say, I need this sold in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so then I think you say we have to be more aggressive here.
Yeah, okay. So we're having a conversation, and we're gonna be talking about some things that are maybe not as fun to be doing. So it's really, really important that you give them permission, I'm sorry, that they give you permission, bless you, to have some of these difficult conversations. All right? So, and the timing can be.
So they don't feel
really-
attacked.
Yes,
What you're
exactly.
saying is so they don't feel attacked.
So let's go with your example. They might need to get out of here really, really fast, right? So let me ask you this. If, Melanie, if you're needing to get out of here in a quick amount of time, I would really like the opportunity to start talking about some of the things that we could do in order to get you out of here as quick as possible. Are you open to have some conversation around what you need to do in order to prepare the house? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. So now what we want, though, is that if I start telling her to do certain things, and she starts giving me some pushback, I'm gonna bring it right back and say, oh, you know, Melanie,
You said,
my understanding was, and I apologize if I misunderstood, my understanding was that you said it was really, really critical to get out of here in a couple weeks and you wanted some of this. Did I misunderstand that? Do you really want to just kind of do what you feel good about, and maybe it takes longer to sell the house or maybe for less money? So I'm cool either way, just want to make sure. Okay, so it's really good to get their buy-in and permission to do this. Okay, so I have your permission, so let's say now, what's their house like? What are we gonna need to do? I would estimate that 95% of all the listings that I sell, I spend a decent amount of time going through and telling them what they should or shouldn't be doing, and it takes them a week to a month on average to get everything ready. I mean, don't feel like people need to list their house with you and then the next day go on the market. Because you've gone through all of that work and effort to find a person to get listed, so you don't want to hurry up and say, all right, let's get on the market tomorrow, then maybe make up for it later. So it's good to be patient, but at the same time, make sure that they know that you're on the same timeline. And I know very few people that are ready to list super fast. So if we're talking basic things, this can mean anything from fixing, touch-ups, carpet cleaning, decluttering.
the last home I purchased had 3 couches and 2 pianos in the living room.
Perfect.
Had a full-on fish tank with a wall lined with bookshelves and a 12-person dining room table.
But that's it.
But that's all.
That's all they had.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was really, really good shape.
What last things they're saying? After decluttering?
Washing windows.
Oh,
These are examples. These are things that people can do, in some cases, for little to no money, or they could bring in somebody and they could do it in a day or two. Pretty basic things. So let's talk about this. By far and away, I think my go-to item for most houses is the decluttering. It is so hard when you lived in the house for even a couple of years, and then 10, 20, 30 years, to have that house be in a position that you don't really have to take things out, you don't have to declutter. And so what I always do is I set this up and I tell my clients, I'm going to suggest certain things to the house. And my goal is that we're gonna sell the house for more money and in a faster amount of time because of it. And bar none, the number one thing I recommend that we do is declutter. If you're not doing anything else, because you might have somebody who says, I don't have money for carpet cleaning, or for somebody to come wash my windows, for somebody to do paint touch-ups. Just about everybody can at least go through and declutter or get rid of their furniture, donate it. That's my go-to. I tell people, make sure that you're going through your pantry, your linen closets, your garage, your fridge, all these places, because you have to help them understand what's coming. Some people have never sold a house before, so they don't know what to expect. So if I were to say to somebody, Marissa, thanks for joining, thank you. You just came in, right? Good. If I said, Marissa, I'm a buyer, I'm gonna be coming through the house, and I'm gonna be looking through things as if I own the place. So we need to make sure that we get everything out of here as much as we can. Why? Creates more space, makes people feel like it's more organized. You'd be surprised what some people leave in their fridge, or in their pantry, or their linen closet. So go through, and here's the nice thing, here's the way to say it, is that you're gonna be moving anyway, right? So why not start getting a head start? Get boxes, start putting those boxes, let's get as much stuff out of here as we can. A big question that people have is furniture. I had this question just earlier this morning. Well, you know, Jojo, should I sell my house with the furniture in it, or should I sell it without the furniture in it? Choose your own adventure book, right? Depends on a couple of things. The way I have found this to be the case is what it looks like currently. This can be kind of your sneak attack a little bit with them, because certain sellers will have a house that, let's just say the furniture is not the nicest. It's in bad shape, it might smell, it's got stains on it, they've got a lot of things. For those people, I will say, you know what, I have generally found that it's better to have a house empty, because a lot of buyers can't picture their things in the house if you have your things in the house. That now caused me not to have to say, you're a hoarder and you need help. So it gets me out of that in a little bit of an easier way. Now, there are other people though, and they'll have very nice furniture and it's staged well. And in those cases, you become a hero, because then you can tell them, look, really the truth of the matter is that some people are gonna be able to not picture their things in here, and other people will be able to picture things, and so you're never gonna get 100% of the people 100% of the time. So use it as more of a way to help people to kind of get that little push to get things out, or just to help give them a compliment and say, man, what was your name? Gabe, you have done a fantastic job decorating here, and you've got really, really nice furniture. So for you, I'm gonna say, let's just go ahead and keep the things in here, okay? And for some people though, it's really, really hard. They might be saying, I gotta move in 2 weeks, is it gonna be a problem if I don't have my furniture in here? That's okay, get it out. If you need that furniture, you're moving, you're not gonna have time to pack it now, so be it. You can't get so rigid in your thinking that you're going to cause them to have to do something if, after the process is finished, it really hasn't helped them do something. Does that make sense? Okay. Another nice thing though is that all of the staging allows you to become the real expert, becomes a go-to person. We as real estate agents, or just salespeople, our goal is to provide value to somebody. And one of the ways that we can do that is provide not only the answers to the problems, but the answers to the answers to the problems, okay? What do I mean by that? Okay, Daniel, so you're a busy guy, and I've just gone through a list of things, okay, we need to get carpet cleaned, we need to have someone declutter, we need to get the windows washed, all these other things. Do you feel like that maybe sometimes sellers could be a little bit overwhelmed by all these things they do, especially if they're needing to move out pretty soon?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so how could you help them, other than going over and doing it yourself?
You could give them like recommendations on like who to contact for carpet cleaning or fixing stuff. Just say, oh, I have a guy that can do this.
So if I asked you right now, Daniel, who do you recommend to wash my windows, clean my carpet, and do some touch-up paint? Who would you recommend?
Joe's all-purpose house.
I think that sounds made up. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dan, for saying that. My point is that you need to have these people before you even have these people, right? So, strong suggestion is start figuring out people that you can recommend. You might get a listing appointment this week. You might have to go sit down with them next week. I have had people list with me because they said, I think Cameron's got everything to take care of. You know, the people to call, the contact. I've had people that have called me and said, Cameron, I got your number from so-and-so. they said that you could help me sell my house and that you could provide all the people that are going to help get the house ready. Imagine the weight off of their shoulders if they're stressed or if they're needing to do something, and that you are gonna be the answer to all these problems. So the way you do this, start coming up with lists of all these different things people are gonna need. I almost said dishwashers, I would say window washers, but it could be dishwashers. So window washers, painters, carpet cleaning, landscapers, roofers, plumbers, HVAC people. Start coming up with lists, and if you don't know of anybody, that's okay. Start having this little mastermind group in here, and say, all right, who has got the best handyman? Who's got the guy that is awesome at this? And start creating a list of your vendors. That needs to start before you need it, okay? Then I would recommend you sit down with all these people and talk to them. Tell them a little bit about your business. How long have you been in business? What kinds of things do you really prefer to work on, and what are the things that you don't want me to even call you about? Get to know them, because really, it's a two-stage issue. You've got to be able to provide the person, but if Zeke is my plumber and he goes over and he steals your TV, well, now that looks bad on me. Yeah. Zeke, you know, if you did that. So make sure that you say, you know what, Rick, I've got this great handyman, and I'll be honest with you, I have not personally used him myself. I have had him recommended by 3 other people though, and I want to make sure that you have your role taken care of. And then you follow up with them after, hey Rick, how did that go? How did that, because you will have to go through, I have been in this business for years. I don't want to discourage you, but I feel like I'm finally starting to get a really good, reliable list of people that I can get. You will go through people and they'll be terrible. So start now so that you're gonna have that in 2 or 3 years, you're gonna have that pretty much well approved, okay? Any questions, comments on that? Okay.
Is it overwhelming to give them two? I wanna give them more than one option, I wanna give them like 2 for each.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair question, that's a fair question, Rich. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Some people like that because there's liability, less liability, okay? Did you have a question or a comment? No?
Yeah, on hers, but go ahead, you first.
Okay, so some people prefer that because they don't want the liability, and they can say, hey, I gave you three plumbers and you went with one and he screwed something up, so you can't blame me. Unfortunately, they're gonna blame you no matter what if you're giving them any names. The reason I personally like to give them one, okay, so situation depends, choose your own adventure, right? In some cases, people are, depending on the industry, if it's carpet cleaning, is a good example. You might need a carpet cleaner, you need him in a couple of days. So I might say at that point, here's my recommendation. I'm giving you 3 people and they're all good. So I'm not saying anyone is better. But if you call one and that one can't do it, go ahead and call this person. If he can't do it, call this person. So I'm giving you options so that you can make sure you don't just call one person and say, sorry, that person couldn't do it, now what? So in that opinion, I think it's good to give options. The one area though that I kind of like to, honestly, to direct them is that I want to make sure that they know that I would like to increase the chances they're going to work with a person that I think will be best for them. For example, if I know somebody, and you might have a plumber who says, I'm only going to do Davis County, I'm not even going to touch Salt Lake County. Well, I don't necessarily know if I want to give him that information, because then someone's going to call up and say, hey, can you come do this? You know, Marissa recommended, oh, I'm sorry, I don't do Salt Lake County. But if I know I have one really good plumber, I know he does it, I know other plumbers, I'm not sure if they're going to, or if they're gonna get to us fast enough, I would give them that one name and say, call him, if he can't get out to you, let me know and I'll find somebody else. Because it's going to increase the likelihood that they're going to get that person that I want that person to work with. The other, and the last thing I'll say on that, is I also like the opportunity, or the way to make sure that my vendors are actually getting business. The reason I do that is I have found that the more business I give to certain vendors, the faster their response times and the better service they give to my clients. So if I'm giving 3 people, or if I'm giving somebody 3 names, I found this out with our home inspectors. We used to give, and I'm not saying any of this is bad, this is just my experience. We would give people a list of 3 home inspectors, and 90% of the time they end up with the first one on the list. And that was great, he was getting a ton of business, but I'd have these other home inspectors say, you never send us anything. So it was hard to get them to go out when that first guy couldn't. So that's all food for thought, but you might talk to somebody else who says, oh no, definitely give them a couple names for liability, let them interview people, let them find out. It's just kind of a difference of opinion. So Melanie, do you have anything else to add there?
I was just gonna say, I give one specific and one broad. And because they'll probably go with the more specific, but then your liability, so like, if they need windows, call my guy Gary, but if that doesn't work out for you, call Colonial Building Supply. And so, I don't know, they might have thought of that on their own, but they're still gonna call my guy first, so I think of it as a specific and broad suggestion.
Not bad. If there's a major problem, you're gonna have to be in trouble no matter who does it though.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, but I think you're spot on.
Okay, so these are the basic things. Any other questions on any of this? Okay.
So on basic cleaning, did not address animals. Dead or alive.
Oh, so what do you mean?
Well, dead animals hanging on the wall, so it's,
Oh, okay, so you like taxidermy and some of those things?
and then
Also like
like
snakes in cages and
Yeah.
stuff.
Good, okay, good point, Rick. We're actually gonna, no, we can go ahead and understand. I was gonna talk about that a little bit later on, but you bring up that's a valuable point. In fact, give me your pen. I'm gonna make a note to specifically bring that, because I always do, but I haven't done it, so thanks. Okay, so that is a really, really, relevant thing.
Trying to get rid of all the phobias, right?
Okay, so let me, this is awesome, because I actually have a lot of real life examples of this. Okay, in Utah especially, you're gonna hit a couple of different things. When you're going in and you're seeing people, you're going to get different categories of people. And none of these are bad, I'm just saying, they can evoke a couple of different feelings from buyers. You're gonna run into hunters, you're gonna run into people who love their family and have pictures all over the place. You're gonna run into people who have different tastes in artwork, or maybe different tastes in posters, some of those things. And certain items could create a little bit of a negative feel for a buyer. And you have to be careful here, because you can really easily offend someone if you say it the wrong way.
religious stuff.
And religious stuff too, right? Religious paintings, artwork, whatever the case may be. So here's how I approach it. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. When I sit down, I had a conversation with a seller just a couple months ago, out in Magna, and you went in and you walk into the front room, in the front wall, and you had 5 or 6 big animal heads, right? Now, obviously, you've got a guy who's super proud of what he's done, so if you go in and say, get those things off, those are hideous, ugly, people are gonna not want your house. Okay, that just put him on the defensive, right? So when it's a situation that you're needing to kind of gently say, look, this would probably be better to either take down, move, burn, whatever the case may be, the way I opened up the conversation with him is I said, what was his name? Bryce?
Let's
Yeah,
go with
no,
Bryce.
Brent. So I said, so I started out with the conversation of, hey, I'd love to give you some suggestions, make sure you know what your house is more sellable. So I started out getting his approval. Okay, fantastic. One of the things I noticed that I have found is that sometimes people in Utah, like some of them, love to have hunting items and things like that, and others get a little bit nervous or worried, or they have strong feelings towards it. My suggestion for you, Brent, is if I were you, I would take a look at storing those things for 2 reasons. Number one is because my goal is to get you the most money for the house and get the buyer who's gonna come in and close the house, because that's what was most important to me. I think that we might turn some people off because buying a house is so emotional, it might really get people not loving the house from the intro. The other reason though is I'm just a little bit worried about having some little kid come in and jump up on one of those and tear it off and break it for you. So would you be open, since you're gonna be moving anyway, to go ahead and start packing those up so we create more space in the room and that we are maximizing our opportunity for a buyer to like the house? He was like, totally, I'm fine with that. You have to be really, really sensitive though, because I've seen hunters who'll say, I don't care, that's gonna stay. Not a problem. That's why I'm just bringing it up right now to make sure that you know that we might get some feedback down the road that is saying contrary to that. And I always want to be honest with you and let you know my job is to make sure that you have all of the best information so that we can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So they're either gonna take your advice or they're gonna remember it and they're gonna follow through later.
Dude, you are a master salesperson.
Case in point, thank you. I had a little family, I was selling a house for a family. I'm going to jump ahead to my 3rd section on this, which is feedback, so bear with me, but this is relevant. make sure that you're getting feedback from the buyers that are going through it. That's probably one of your best tools in the selling of a house. But you're gonna get feedback for people going through it. And I have helping their daughters, their mom had passed away, they're selling a house in Highland, it's a decent sized home. And they had done some really good job of remodeling, cleaning it up, putting new carpets in and painting it. So it looked a lot fresher, a lot newer. And the mom had these hideous golden curtains, okay? You know what I'm talking about. They were ugly. Those things have been around for about 40 years. And had them in the front room. So I went through all the scripts that we're talking about. I said my suggestion would be that makes the house look a little bit dated. And I told them, one of the things I would recommend you do is I would remove those so that we can maximize and make sure that people are focusing on the other things. And they said, no, that was really important to Mom, and we want to keep those up. Cool. I'm just letting you know that's been my experience showing hundreds of buyers' houses, the feedback that I get. So first week we put up on the market, we had several showings. Went through it, and what do you think the feedback was when I asked them, what do you think the seller should do in order to improve?
Oh, those drapes were so gaudy.
Drapes are not included,
So I called the sellers up that week, I called up the daughter, set up a conference call. I said, hey, ladies, we had 4 people come through. Would you guys like to take a guess at what the number one thing was that all the agents said that we need to do? And you hear the silence for a second, and the one sister said, take the drapes down. Yep, okay, we'll take them down next week. So that set me up well because I told them to do something and they didn't. And then they had people say that that was what you needed to do. And I was telling them, your house isn't selling. And you need to start listening to me if you want to sell the house. So that way, when something else came up down the road, I could say, you know what, once again, just like the drapes, my job is to recommend certain things. I'm never going to force you to do it. It's your decision. And they start thinking, he does sound like he knows what he's talking about, so I should probably just go ahead and do it. So it's good to come back on that. Now, here's a question I get all the time. You take down all of the kids' photos, you leave them, what do you do?
Lee will tell you to depersonalize.
What does Lee know? No. Some people are very much a get rid of everything, okay? That's not quite my train of thought. Here's what I tell people to do. Here's your own adventure, okay? My suggestion to people is, look, what I have found is that when you walk into a house, if this is my wall, and I can't see my wall because you have a collage of all of your grandkids, I think that's a bit much. My suggestion is make it tasteful, make it clean, make it look nice. This becomes an opportunity where you can actually endear yourself to the family. So I'll say, and if it's true, right, I'm not going to lie to them, but if they got, I remember one specific time, I walked into the house and they asked that question, they said, oh no, we're going to take these pictures down. They just had, up a staircase, they had, I think, 3 framed photos of their grandkids. And I said, look, honestly, you got beautiful grandkids, major brownie points right there. You got beautiful grandkids. I tell people if it's over the top, you need to cut back or declutter. I think you've done a tasteful job with this. If you're comfortable with it, I think there's nothing wrong with leaving them up. So what happens then is that people are saying, oh, less work for me. I've got beautiful grandkids. I'm gaining favor for these clients if it's true. But if they have something that looks terrible, then they go back to, yeah, it is really important that you depersonalize, that you make sure that the people are, because then it gives me an excuse to tell them, I'd rather not have people look at your daughter. It's a mute, baby.
This might be off topic, but I went to some showings last weekend and had some agents asking me for feedback. What kind of feedback are they looking for? I wasn't exactly sure.
Was it a board tour?
What's that?
Was it a board tour, or you showed a house?
He just went
the buyer, and then they're calling you for feedback?
Just a little agent preview, yeah.
Okay. So all these things that we're going over, keep them in mind. Okay. Share with them. Too many photos of the kids. Just clean that up a little bit.
Cat smell.
Cat smell. Those kinds of things. Okay. All the things we're talking about in here, you'll know. Just tell me what your honest opinion is. It smells really bad in there, or they need to clean up the interior. Some of those types of things. And then also the same thing with some people are religious. Doesn't matter, good or bad. If it's over the top, I tell people let's pare it down. I'm not going to tell people you can't have Jesus hanging up on your wall. if it looks good and it's tasteful. And I'll tell people, you might get some people, and man, that speaks to them. And the other people say, I don't really care. You're not gonna win every battle, just make sure that you're playing the percentages. I have had people, I had a lady in West Jordan, her husband has a garage, and he's got some interesting posters up in the garage. And I said, my suggestion is I would take these down. She said, I'll let you tell my husband. I said, I will. I said, I'm just telling you that some people are gonna get a little offended by what's up there. And if it's cool with that, that's fine. I'm just telling you that so when somebody gives me that feedback, you guys aren't thinking, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me to take it out? And I'll let you make that decision, okay? You can blow things up and you can get off to a really, really bad foot if you are not handling these situations appropriately. But in some cases, man, if you handle it well, with tact, then you will gain a lot of favor, and a lot of other things that we're talking about will become so much easier.
Choose your own adventure sometimes ends with you are dead.
Yeah, exactly. It says start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning.
Should the listing agent probably let buyer's agents know if there are like live animals in the house, caged snakes, things like that?
Don't you put it in the notes on the, in the listing, aren't there notes?
Anything.
Oh, and you went in and there was all of that?
Mannequins dressed, it was.
And there were no notes.
Attention all agents or sellers or psycho.
Do you do that?
I always, for the listing's sake, we always do with centralized show, or we use showing time now. I always do footnotes. There is a cat in the house, or there are 2 dogs in the kennel. My strategy though for my sellers is I always say make sure your dogs are out of the house, or if you're worried about cats getting out, then I would just take them with you as best you can. So to give them some heads up so that you don't have a buyer that goes in and is attacked by a Doberman or something. Yeah, you just don't want to
I'm sure it's happened.
I was the only agent that didn't ask me for feedback.
They didn't want it.
Yep. You can totally do it.
Okay, so let's go. Man, I'm just flying.
Okay,
So,
I gotta go.
we're gonna go now into the second stage, which we will just call in-depth. That says in-depth, I promise. Okay, so when we're talking in-depth, we're talking about bigger, I mean, these are things, you might be able to do this in a day if you can, but other things are gonna be bigger than that. So now we're talking about painting, new carpets, roof, fixtures, new fixtures, etc. So now we're talking bigger ticket items. These things are the ones, yeah, you might spend $400, $500, $600. But man, you go in and you put a roof on it, you can be $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 really, really fast. So how do you bring these things up? Back to the beginning, when you're sitting down with your sellers, it is massively important that you ask them and you talk to them, what are their options, okay? Because for some people, they may not have the cash, they may not have the time. They need to know what their options are. So, along with some of those other questions I talk about, an important piece of this conversation is, you know, Emily, you are my client. And as my client, there are a lot of different pieces of advice that I can give to you. So I need to know what is most important to you in this whole situation. What is most important to you?
Money and self-esteem.
Money and self-esteem.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then I'm gonna say, so what, let's pretend your carpet looks terrible and the paint job was not really good. So if that's the case, if you want the money and the self-esteem, I would ask you, do you have money to put into your house and do you have some time to do some things?
If I was really selling, I'd probably ask like, what would the payoff be? Like, would it be worth, like pretty much doing things?
Absolutely. And Emily, I'm never going to recommend you put $1 into your house unless you're gonna get $3 back out.
Then
So
yeah.
if you can't do that, you have the money, because some people will say, yeah, I know my carpet looks disgusting, but I don't have any money. I can't do it. You can't say you need to get the carpet changed if they don't have the money to get the carpet changed. Okay? So find out what's important to them and what they're going to be doing, and then that way if you say, money is really important to me, but I don't have money and I've got to get this done fast, then I would say, okay, we're gonna play the hand we're dealt with, and if you don't have the money, I could have made these suggestions, because I think in the long run, it'll get you more money. If we don't have it, that's okay. We're gonna save the money, we're gonna save the time, we're just gonna be moving faster. As long as you know, because we might get people getting feedback that says, change the carpets, or do these things. And I don't want you to feel like, man, Cameron, you just got the house on the market, because you wanna make a quick commission, but you didn't tell me what to do in order to do it. We're having that conversation up front. So find out first what's important to your clients, then make recommendations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that too, because then they might realize like, well, I told them I don't have the money, but now that I look it over and see how much I can make,
Yes.
maybe I can
Mhm.
find it, but.
Good point. And in some cases, this goes back to the vendor list. I'm doing right now, I have a client, he's listing 5 properties with me. He's listing 5 properties with me because his business is toast, so he doesn't have money. So I've arranged for a mover to get a lot of these things out of these houses, and I've arranged it so that the mover's gonna charge him when he gets proceeds from the house. I'm a hero to this guy, but you can't do that to everybody. So that's why you need to start now getting relationships. I have roofers that will charge people after the house is closed. They'll do the work in some cases even, and they'll put a lien on the house. There are different ways. I've got carpet companies that will, as long as they get 25% deposit, then they'll go in and do carpet, get the rest at closing. You can't just do that by calling up RC Will. I mean, you have to really develop these relationships up front. But man, if you were to tell me money is so important to me, and I don't own anything in the house, and I just got a transfer, but I've got to get this done quickly, I am your knight in shining armor if I can tell you I can get this carpet done, and they're gonna charge you probably a little bit more because they're taking a risk, Emily, but they're not gonna do it until when it closes. Would that be of interest to you? Okay, so those kind of conversations happen. That's what sets you apart. That way, Emily sells the house for more money, she pays them at closing, she is thrilled. What do you think she's gonna say when she hears of a family member saying, I really wanna sell my house? You don't have to use this guy. No, I'm not saying, we're gonna call him right now, and you're gonna talk to him because I've done so much for her, okay? So when you're in these types of things, in these situations, know what their limits are. And make sure that you understand, a roof is a big deal. Whenever I go up to a house, you guys know what an FHA loan is compared to a conventional loan, right? So if you go up to a house and you see, just for those who don't know, if a roof is shot, meaning an appraiser goes in and says, I don't think that house has a year worth of expectancy on the roof, they may not be able to get an FHA loan. You don't want to be telling or explaining that to your seller after you accept an FHA offer and they've moved out of the house and then they find out, well, you gotta get a new roof. You need to tell them that up front. I've had that happen before. Go to the house, Mrs. Seller, I want you to know something. I'm concerned because your roof is in really, really bad shape, and I don't think it's gonna pass an FHA appraisal. So you have 2 options. Number 1, you have the money. No, I don't. All right. Option 2 is, do we even worry about the roof? But if you don't do anything about the roof, you're more than likely going to have to work with a conventional buyer, thereby making less money. If we go the other route, I've got a guy, he'll do the roof for you, he'll charge you more, because it is a risk to him, but he'll get it done. Thereby, we can open up to other people who are looking at houses like this and get you more money. Which would you like to do? So let them make the decision. But
How
it's
much more money are you talking about?
just depending on the roofer, and it could be another 10, 15%. For some people, they say, yeah, that'd be awesome, because that's gonna take one less worry off my hands. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to pay for it.
Have you ever been in a situation where someone did not get closed, or someone did not get paid?
No, I've been really, really careful with that, and I've always explained it to the clients, and I've explained it to the contractors, and in some cases, I've had contractors, I've told them, I said, I want you to put a lien on the house until it closes, and I told the sellers that's what's going to happen. And they're comfortable with it. So I've
They're
never been burned.
protected, yeah.
You know, I've never been burned
Does
that
that
way.
mess anything up, like, for the buyers when they're doing like? the
No,
title
there's
agreement?
just a lien, it's like any other kind of mortgage or lien, so we gotta pay this off. If we don't pay it off, then we can't close it, but that's why I always make sure that I wouldn't do that if I felt like the guy was, maybe I'll sell, maybe I won't. No, these are situations where, these people are desperate, they have a job transfer, they're losing the house.
So you're not offering that every time, but it's.
No,
this-
I'm doing that
you
very
know it's gonna be-
sparingly.
Okay.
If the guy said, you know what, if I can get the money out of the house, I need it, fine. Then I'm gonna go back to, well, I've got good contractors I can recommend. Well, I don't have the money. Okay, just let me know that that is an option. So, but if it's somebody that I felt like was 100% not going to sell, or is gonna be maybe a difficult client to work with, I'm gonna pull back. I've even, and this gets a little bit more, I've even upfronted money before, and then told my sellers, hey, I'm gonna need you to pay me back at closing. But that's a huge trust issue, but if you can, I've done it a lot, and I've been successful, but you have to really have a good feel for the house is gonna sell, they're gonna be realistic on the price. I wouldn't just do that, because you can get burned pretty bad. Okay, the last level is what we call, and I've switched these up. At one point I called it memory. That's on 5 actually.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what 5 means in DEFCON 5. Rick, do you?
Means you're at war. Means you're at war.
Alright, there you go. Is the 5 specifically the
Highest level,
so is there DEFCON 4?
yes.
Yeah.
And 3 and 3.
What does 4 then mean?
They're almost at war.
Your mobilization.
What does DEFCON 1 mean?
That's what we're normally at.
We're always at DEFCON 1? Huh, okay.
We're talking about the world. Is this like sci-fi?
Or the danger zone, either one. Okay, this is really scary stuff. This is if you go in and the guy has got all kinds of geodes and bolos hanging from every. Just kidding. Just kidding. For those who don't know, Rick is an amazing gemologist. Would that be what you're kind of?
Rock guy.
Rock guy. He's awesome. He creates some really, really cool jewelry. I've even worn a piece.
I didn't make that one.
That's right, but I tell people. It's a Rick original.
I'll take it.
Okay, so this is for things where a house might need to be an investor, health department. You'll laugh, but I've sold 2 houses,
Yeah.
shut down by the health department. Hoarder. Oops. Okay, do these things exist out there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've been surprised because I've actually talked to people who said, well, I would never list for those houses. I say, those are some of the funnest houses to list.
What about condemned houses?
Same, right? Can be, why is it condemned? Is it structural, or is it because, no kidding, I've heard of people, that's kind of in the health department zone where they've had a dozen cats in a house and it's never been cleaned. And it's, I mean, there are gases that have been formed and are lethal now to people. I mean, to that level. Oh, I've got some crazy pictures. Sometimes I'll have to share that, I'll start bringing those in on the classes. You would just make your skin crawl.
That'd be like fun team meeting.
Yeah, right. Best of, it would be. I'm curating this collection of photos from these houses. You are going to run into these houses if you do enough business, and it's silly to turn these people down because sometimes they're the people that need the most help, and they're the ones that you can get a lot of referrals off of. And sometimes you can even sell them yourself to an investor and double in it. So I would never shy away from a house that's really, really bad. If you ever get somebody who says, I got this really, really disgusting house, or you interested in looking at it, say, heck yeah, let's figure out how to help them. Now, what I would recommend in these situations is going back to what we've talked about this whole time. If you sit down with somebody and I've seen the example, if it's an estate sale, so mom passed away and she was a hoarder and wouldn't let anybody touch her house, and it could be a rental. A guy from out of state said, I've got all of these problems and I have these tenants who trash my house, and I'm coming in, I've got to sell. And there's a lot of different scenarios that can play out. But when you sit down with people, it goes back to what we've been talking about. What is most important to you? Okay? For example, if you're sitting down and, so Elena and I did a deal and she did an awesome job, she represented the buyer. If you're sitting down with one of your investors or somebody who's sold a house and that person is saying, it's a disgusting house, what do I do with it? We provide them with what we provide everybody else, options, different scenarios. What's most important to you about selling this house? You want to get the most money out of it. You just want to be done with it. If you are telling them, okay, we're listing the property and we want to get the most money, so we need to do this and this, and it's going to cost this and this and this, you might get some people just totally shut down. Conversely, you might sit down with somebody and say, okay, we're just going to go ahead and sell it as is, and you're going to make a lot less money. Well, that's going to upset them as well. So I provide my clients with options. Okay, Jojo, when I'm working with clients, I have found that they're usually in a couple of different places in life. It can be that they have money, they have resources, they have time, they have energy, and they wanna get the most money out of the house, and it's okay if it takes a little bit of time. On the other end of the spectrum, I might have people that will say, I gotta get this done tomorrow, and I don't have the energy, I'm taking care of my own life back home in a different state, I just need to be done. And some people in the middle who will say, in between, where are you? And I let you make the decision, because I'll have people that will say, I'm on that extreme, or I'm on that extreme, or I'm kind of in the middle. Okay, great, here's what we need to do in order to get you X. For example, you might get a house that's disgusting, but the person doesn't have a ton of money, but they want to try to maximize what they can get out of it. So in that scenario, I might say, okay, let's do this. Let's hire a company, a hallway service. That is a company like a 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Don't use them because they're super expensive. There are other people that you can get. But let's get everything out of the house, or let's hire some laborers. Let's get a dumpster delivered. Let's get everything at least out of the house, and let's get a cleaner to go in and at least clean it. It's not gonna fix anything, but at least it's gonna make it smell a little better, it's gonna make it a little more presentable, and that's gonna cost you maybe $1,000, $1,500. Is that doable? Yes. Okay, let's go that route. Or I don't even have that money, I don't have any money, and I gotta get this done. Okay, then just so you know, this is what we need to do. We're gonna make this much money because this is what comparables are saying, and if you're okay with that, then let's go that direction. So it's finding out what's most important. I do wanna say one piece though, and I forgot to mention this back, because people ask, well, what's the biggest bang for your buck in these situations? I always tell people, I have found that your biggest bang for your buck is your carpet and your paint. That is what I have found that cleans up the house and I can very confidently tell people, put that carpet and paint into it and you'll get much more out of the house than if you didn't. But I don't tell that unless it's true throughout the whole house. Meaning, I'll have situations where you go into a house and the house is very dated. And it's got the Formica countertops, and it's got the brass fixtures, and the cottage cheese ceilings, and the shag carpet. And in those situations, I'll tell people, I wouldn't put the money into it, only because you're more likely gonna have someone come in and remodel everything. So don't do that. Conversely, there are people who go in, and this is very true, especially if they are pet owners. You go into a house and the carpet smells terrible, and it looks really, really bad, or it's really, really stained. In some of those situations, I will say, yes, I would change the carpet, even though I'm not changing anything else, just for the appearance, the aesthetics, the smell, that's gonna help you. The more real estate you sell, the better you'll get at this. I mean, I feel very confident, I can walk into the house and say, do this, this, and this. Absolutely don't do that, and that, and that. I feel very confident, I've been doing it for years. But just know that carpet paint can completely change the whole look of a house and the smell and the feel. Relatively speaking, not super expensive.
Tell me what your considerations are in offering as a seller consideration, like we'll give you a $5,000 credit towards
Concession.
carpet. Thank you,
Yeah.
concession. What did I say?
Consideration.
Concession. What is the tipping point for you?
Yeah, I tell, because people will bring that up and say, I don't want to do the carpet, I'll just give them a carpet allowance.
Yes.
Or something of that nature. More and more today, what's happening is that a lot of lenders don't like to see those kinds of things. You'll write them in the contract, and a lot of lenders will say, and we're not a
Pull it
super
back.
fan. Some of them will, but I'm seeing very, very few that are saying we're excited about that.
Is it because the value? They're saying the house isn't worth that?
They're saying it's an inducement to purchase.
Yeah.
In some cases, you can even get it set up where it's saying, hey, sellers will pay RC Willey, so a direct company at closing. Some lenders are that way as well. My suggestion is, what I tell people is I'll say, look, we run into sometimes issues or problems with that on the lending side of things. So if you're willing to give a credit, maybe instead of giving a credit or a concession on carpet or paint, what we could do is we could say they're going to spend approximately X in closing costs in order to buy your house. If you're okay to give a credit, maybe we could advertise that we would take a look and that we'd be interested in paying half or all the closing costs for the buyer. That's easy. Everybody's doing that. That's not gonna raise any eyebrows. And that way the buyer has an extra $3,000 to put new carpet on this floor. So it becomes an option. So you don't really see a lot of allowances these days.
Allowances anymore, more in like closing costs.
Mhm.
whenever I see the allowance, it always seems to me that they're offering $3,000 in carpet allowance, but it's gonna take $6,000
Yeah.
to do it, so
It gets messy, and so
Yeah.
I just tell people from the selling standpoint, just so you know, this is going to come up, and I like your idea, or even better, is we could price a little more aggressively, instead of listing it at 200, let's list it at 190, and then that way, we might have multiple offers, and people won't even care that they're getting concessions or not concessions.
Yeah, okay.
So they're different strategies.
Thank you.
Hey, good to see you. Okay, we're running out of military time, 2:30?
2:30.
Dave took a lot of my time.
Yeah, one day.
Okay, any other questions on staging? We hit that, but I think it's important. Now, let me tell you guys, one other last thing I'll say about staging, because this is critical, is the photos. How many here have professional photographers that have to take photos?
I will.
Okay, most people don't, that's not a problem, it can be kind of expensive, I think it's worth it, but it can be expensive. If nothing else, make sure that when you are going to take photos, that there's some actually really good online classes that you can go and take, that tell you how to take better photos with an iPhone or a smartphone. Invest in some of those classes, because I've seen some of the worst photos, they're super dark, they're upside down when they're put on the MLS, those things, that.
You can tell when they go out there with their cell phone and take a picture.
The real obvious one is where you see a picture of the bathroom and you see a guy
In the mirror.
arm sticking out behind the room trying to take a photo of the room. So you don't have to be professional, but that is a good place to invest money. There's a company we use called, what do you guys use? What's their name?
Purple Moss.
Spotlight. Purple Moss is one.
What is the average? How much does it cost? Is it by square footage? Is it by?
It depends. A lot of times it is the size of the house.
Okay.
But we use a company, showing times or showing service, Spotlight. Spotlight is a company, and they've been really, really good, because they'll let you have, I think it's 5 tours for $250 a month. I think that's what-
Wow.
But some of these companies that have, I will say maybe the quality is not as good as a Purple Moss, but it's a heck of a lot better than an iPhone. I mean, they'll have the wide angle lens, so the places will look better. Those, I would strongly suggest that you start paying a professional photographer as soon as you can, because your photos will show it. And your clients will appreciate it.
See, that's less than I thought it would be. I was thinking it would be probably $100 a listing. Is it because of your volume?
Yes, and that's.
Some charge 300, 350.
Yeah, it's,
350.
you could be spending, I mean, I think, an actual photographer's doing one-offs like that, I think the lowest I've heard is 150 for that, but they're usually pretty expensive, and that's why I really like this service, because you can kind of buy them in bulk, and they have different photographers that can go out at different times of the year, and different days and things.
You were able to do the lighted windows on Photoshop.
So did you do one first in your beginning stages?
The very, very beginning, I took my own photos with a digital camera. And if nothing else, you can do that. Just make sure that if you can stage it well. I mean, in the very, very beginning, I had one of those old digital cameras, and I would still do it at the beginning, but I still, at that point, was pretty good about making sure that it was ready. So when it showed pretty nice. And you can sell a house as long as it's, I would say I would focus more on making sure the house is clean and showing well. Because if it's not, I've told people, I have a professional photographer, because of the way we're selling it, we shouldn't get him, because he's going to show what a dump this place is. It's gonna be really, really obvious. So I've told clients before, don't get professional photography, because it's not going to look, it's gonna emphasize what is wrong with this place.
Yeah.
Do you ever opt out of interior photos?
Never. Yeah, I've always done it, but I've had a couple of houses that only had, in fact, I sold a house.
Put 2 pictures on.
I sold a house in Magna, I had 2 interior photos, because the place was horrible, and that was one. I was out with my client, took a couple of photos of my digital, and I said, look, I'm not having a photographer come in here, because, I mean, it was bad. It was just an old guy, he's couldn't take care of it, so the place was falling apart. Okay, we're gonna have to fly through these next 2 sections. I usually have an hour to do the next 2 sections, so we're going to talk about customer service, and we're going to talk about marketing. Here's what I'll say. We can kind of cut this down pretty fast. Go to page 16. Marketing list. Okay, marketing a listing is, you will, overall, let me give you a thought. I would disbelieve an agent who will say, you know what, I can do things marketing wise that no other agent will do. I have found a secret to market your house that nobody else knows about. And because of this website that I put your house on, or because of this flyer that I create, your house will sell. I've come after years and years of being in the business to realize that doesn't exist. So I find it hard to say that any one agent will say, well, my marketing plan works better than others, in the sense of what you can actually do. We all have access to the MLS. We all have access to KSL and Facebook and some of those things. So there are different reasons why so many people are selling so many of their houses while other agents are selling just a few. That is a lead up to say, if you look at this marketing plan, you have 14 points on here. What I really encourage you to do is, if you're getting ready to go into listing presentations, is that you create your own marketing strategy and then you put it together. Now, the way I would recommend you do that is go out and find examples of 4 or 5 different marketing plans. You can find them online. There are different coaching companies that will have different strategies. I mean, Keller Williams has awesome opportunities where you can go and learn about some of these other agents. We're going to go to, there's so many different ways we look at it. But once you distill it down, you're going to see a lot of carryover, okay? So here is how you differentiate yourself. The most important thing that I would say is to go out and put different points together. I don't care if it's a dozen, or if it's 16, or if it's 20. The critical piece there is just whatever you come up with, make sure that you are actually willing to do it, and that you can do it. I would much rather have you say, I've got 10 things, I'm gonna do these 10 things to sell your house, and I'm gonna do it at the highest level possible. That's so much better than an agent who will say, I've got 100 different things I'm gonna do to get your house sold, and then does 2. Okay? So your qualifier is, are you really going to do what you say you're going to do? That's the most important piece, all right? So, the way I would like to recommend you do this, though, is a little bit different than I think a lot of people do, and that is this. Russ, you're going to be my script partner on this one. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a role play here, and I'm going to role play partner. That's what I meant, not script partner. So you're my seller. I'm going to sit down with you, and I've got a list of things I'm going to tell you that I'm going to do to sell your house. Now, where people get mixed up in this is that you will hear some sellers who will say, man, it's awesome. Tyler is going to do all of these great things to sell my house. And he may have walked in with a very, very similar list that you did. He just may have presented it better. And I'm going to just make some suggestions as to how you present this list of what you're going to do to tell them what you're going to do to market the listing, okay? So, there are 2 scenarios. This is the first one. So Russ, we signed a listing agreement, or we're talking about signing a listing agreement, and I'm really excited to tell you about the things I'm going to do in order to sell your house, all right? So I'm going to go through these. So the first one, Russ, I'm going to price the home competitively with the current market and the price trends. I'm going to advise the sellers, or I'm going to advise you guys how to attract buyers by showing your home in the best possible light. I'm going to get a for sale sign and put it out there with property flyers easily accessible to notified buyers. I'm going to respond to all the buyers' inquiries immediately, and on and on and on. That's what I'm doing. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. The definition of selling is the transference of energy. So now I'm going to sell you on it as opposed to just tell you on it, okay? So, Russ, I'm going to use the same list, I'm going to use the same setup. So Russ, I'm really excited about telling you about the things I'm going to do in order to get your house sold. So what I'd like to do is go through those right now. That's okay. Perfect. Russ, could you read to me what is the #1 thing I'm going to do to get your house sold?
Price the home competitively with the current market and price trends.
Perfect. Now, I have to ask you this question. You'll see that I have 14 points on here. Why do you guess, Russ, that I have placed that one at the very top of my list?
Because normally pricing is more important than anything else, getting the most money out of your house.
You say normally. Is there a time you can think of when it's not the most important thing?
When it's a dump.
Yeah. Even then, no one wants to overpay for a dump, right?
Right.
They want a fair price on a dump. So really, when all is said and done, would you agree,
Yes.
Russ, that if we don't price your house correctly, it doesn't really matter what other things are done here? Okay? So can you see at this point why we spent 15 to 20 minutes on the price before I even got to this? Okay, fantastic. So the next one is I'm going to advise you on how to get the most buyers through your house. Now I'm going to insert my line. Russ, as I walk through your house, there's some things that I would love to talk to you about that we can do in order to maximize the sale of your house. Would you be interested in putting some work into the house if that meant getting more money out of it? Great. And would you be open to some constructive feedback as to how we can make it look as good as we can?
Yes.
Perfect. And you promise not to punch me in the face if I say something that will be offensive?
No.
Okay, good. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, Russ, the next one says, place for sale sign of property flyers easily accessible to drive-by buyers. I want to amend that and say that I don't use flyers. You see a lot of flyers probably out when you're driving around, right? Do you know why I don't use flyers?
Because kids go through there and pick them up and throw them all over the neighborhood and they get upset.
You've done this, you know what I'm talking about. So what I do instead of that is I use basically what's called a dot signal sign. That simply means, you may have heard, maybe not, I can track how many people call in on the house, and more importantly, I can get their phone number. So when they have called in to get their digital information, I can then call them back to make sure they got all that information. And tell them all the great things about your house and sell them on why we need to come take over your house. Now, would you rather have flyers end up in your front yard or actual buyers coming through the house?
Fires come through.
Buyers coming through the house, exactly. So what am I doing?
What was that called?
Dot sign.
Dot signal?
Dot what?
Dot signal? It's just, they're these writers that you can put on signs.
Are they like QR codes?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what am I doing? Engaging, he's part of the sales process, right?
He's helping you develop your marketing.
Yeah, so I'm making sure that you're involved in it, and by doing so, after you met with me and after you met with Phoenix, even though we said most of the same things, you took an active role in it, so that we were a team. So the reason I say that is that if you go and you look at it and say, why is the Stern team closing so many deals while other people are not? Well, it's because that they have the sales techniques and they can go in and tell people and sell them. And one of the biggest pieces of selling is how I'm going to do it, because really, I have a hard time believing that someone's going to have this incredible marketing plan that's guaranteed to work, other than pricing it right and doing the things that we've been talking about before. So the lesson in this, and unfortunately it's not the fun lesson, is you got to practice this. We come into real estate because it sounds fun, we work with people, and we get to sell houses. But if you're not willing to go in and practice, make sure that you can sell someone on this piece, you're going to leave a ton of business on the table. A really, really important piece that doesn't get emphasized nearly as much. So any questions on the marketing side of things? Okay, so the last piece that we're going to go over before we end.
Well, tell us what your favorites are. This dot sign, what else?
So if you want to come after, I can just send you what we send out.
Perfect.
So make it easier.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one is find the page where it says customer service. Yes, that's the same. Communicate with sellers, I misspoke. Communicate with sellers, page 21. Okay, so on this page, well, that would be the other way. Is that right? Oh, you are, oh, you're unique. Is that a difference?
She's probably got.
We're in section
Right,
6.
you're in section 6.
Oh.
Yeah. Thanks, Zeke. So it's really different.
I didn't know that either, don't feel bad, until he told me.
Okay, I'm warriors. Okay, so on here, reader, please. Jojo, thank you.
I'm sure great how.
Yes, can you read the first paragraph, please?
Remember, you told the sellers it is all about them, and you promised them a 10% customer experience. You have agreed to communicate in the ways that work for the sellers, whether once a week, once a day, by phone, email, or text.
Okay, great. You probably haven't gone over what a 10++ experience is? You have? Oh, okay, because you're in that, but not any night, right? You haven't talked about that at all? So, remember how we talked about in the beginning, how you can find out what's important to people? This is a really, really key way to do it. Once you've listed the property, you've now begun this wonderful courtship and relationship, or you basically are now married. And you have the opportunity to have an amazing marriage or a terrible marriage based on what you're doing now. And the client is as happy and as excited to work with you as they will probably ever be at this one moment. So you have to take advantage of it, because they love you and you want to make sure that you are going to reap the rewards down the road. So what I do is I take this opportunity to make sure that I understand what is most important to them about going forward now, okay? So, Emily, let's role play this with me right now. So we just listed the house. So now I'm gonna say, Emily, because you have trusted me to make sure that I do a good job, I wanna make sure that this is an amazing experience for you, and that you have an experience that you would consider 10 plus plus. I mean, the best kind of experience possible. So in order for that to happen, what things would need to take place from now until the end to make sure that you've had a 10 plus plus experience? It's an amazing way.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to think if I was actually saying what would be. Maybe just communication. I feel like you're able to answer questions if I have them in a timely manner.
And I'm writing all this down, by the way.
Yeah.
Here's my pen and.
I don't know, I'm getting feedback that I feel will be productive.
Fabulous.
Okay.
So communication, feedback. You said a word there that's really critical. You said timely. What does that mean?
Just so I'm not, like, I don't reach out to you and then I have to wait 5 days to hear back from you.
Wow. So if I got back to you in 4, is that cool?
Okay, yeah, more specific, maybe like get back to me the
Same
same day.
day?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Good. So what I'm hearing is that timely communication, same day, positive feedback. Is there anything else that you think would be important to have a 10 plus plus experience?
Sure, there's more understanding.
Let's say you kept it at that, you said that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so Emily, thank you so much.
Okay.
Outside of, like, 'cause that's exactly what I want my sellers to say. Because if they say those couple of points, this is gonna be so much easier. Because ironically, almost everybody says communication. One of the biggest disappointments that people have in us as an industry is our lack of communication. Now, you have to set the stage up front, because if she would have said, communication is important, I need to hear from you every single day, well, if I hadn't asked that question and resolved it, then she might be really mad at me if she only heard from once a week, when I thought once a week was great communication.
Yeah.
So you gotta make sure you're on the same page there. So what I would do there is I'd say, Emily, timely communication is really, really important. I, for example, would wanna make sure that she knows, let me tell you what my schedule is like, because in the morning, I'm lead gen, and that means I'm looking for a buyer for your house, so I might be a little bit tougher to reach in the morning. I do make the commitment, though, to you, if you had called me, say, any time up until 12 o'clock, you're going to hear from me that day. You're gonna set your own standards, okay? If you say, after 8 o'clock, I'll get back to you the next morning by 12. If they have that expectation as to when they're gonna hear back from you, it's gonna take away so many problems. They say that it takes 20 minutes for a defensive call versus 2 minutes for an offensive call. What do you think that means?
Arguing.
If you call them and you initiate the call, it's gonna take you 2 minutes if they actually call you.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The worst thing ever is when you hear a call from somebody, say, I'm gonna call in 10 minutes. But you got that call from them, so now you have to explain to them whatever it was that you're gonna take. But if you call them, there's so many times when people say, hey, thanks so much for calling. Thanks so much for reaching out. Thanks so much for checking in. You get huge, huge points for that. So what I do is I make sure they understand what's gonna happen. Another big one, especially if you're listing a house, is to know what their expectations are about getting feedback. You can imagine, put yourself in their shoes. They're super excited to sell the house. They've had 5 people through the first day, and then they hear nothing from you, right? That is cruel to the sellers. So I tell my sellers, Emily, what I want you to know, because the timely feedback and the constructive feedback is really, really important. So here's what I'm going to do. And make up whatever you're gonna do. So that you know when people show the house, we start reaching out to get feedback from them immediately. It will take in some cases a day to 3 days for them to call us back or text us back, and sometimes they don't reach out to us at all. So what my goal is, instead of every single time we have a showing to call you and bug you, I collect all this feedback and I report back to you once a week. I report back to you on Thursdays in the afternoon, or Thursdays in the morning, whenever you say you're going to do it. And in that situation, or in that call, I'll let you know what people have said about the house, the concerns they have about it, and any comments that we want to address to maybe fix the house and take down those hideous curtains. Okay? As an example. That way, they're not calling me every single day saying, well, what do they think? Well, what do they think? Well, what do they think? And that they know, hey, once a week I'm gonna hear from him. Once a week I'm gonna hear from her. And it's taking away those defensive conversations. You're always on offense, always on the offense. And now if she's saying anything else, you know, if she is saying, I mean, these people are giving you gold at this moment. They are telling you how to be successful. They are giving you the answers to the test before you take the test. So if she were to say something like, you know, Cameron, well, it's just what you had said. I want the constructive feedback. I want the good, positive feedback. So what that means is that if you ever start to get irritated or annoyed with the feedback, I bring you back and say, Emily, tell me if I'm wrong on this. Maybe I misunderstood. When we're discussing this, you had said that you wanted feedback. And I know that I brought up, guys, I brought up situations with my sellers about buyers thinking their kids were doing drugs in the house, that their animals, that the house smelled terrible. I mean, they're sometimes going to get offended about this feedback. So you say, hey, taking a step back here, you had mentioned how you want to hear this feedback. Is that something you still want? Because if you do, I want to give it to you. If not, I can start sugarcoating it going from here on out. And I'll say, oh, well, no, don't do that. Just, you know, okay, just want to make sure that we're still on the same page here. So they're telling you how to do all of these things. Does that make sense? Okay. The best example I remember from this is there was an agent in my office. This was before I came to Keller, which was my previous brokerage. He went through this, you know, he did a good job of setting it up. So what he would do is he would call the seller. He was listening to jukebox. Call the seller first week and said, hey, it's Travis, I'm just checking in with you. Want to talk to you about some of the feedback we've had on the house, on the jukebox. Didn't get a call back. Second week, called the second time. Hey, just want to call you. We didn't have a on the duplex, but want to tell you about the first weekend. The feedback was there. No call back. He kept calling back week after week after week, just leaving his messages, trying to get a hold of you, wanting to get the feedback, what's going on. We didn't have any showings, or we did, and here's some of the things that people said. Was never hearing back from the seller. So he's getting annoyed. And they're not even calling back, and I'm just going through my motions. But I did promise them that I was gonna call them once a week. Even if I didn't have any feedback or anything to tell them, I'm at least gonna check in with them so they know what I'm doing to sell the house. A couple of months pass by, and then he gets a call from her one day. Hey Travis, this is Sally, whatever her name was. I know you've been doing a really good job of keeping me informed of what was going on. I've been super busy, I've been traveling a lot with work, and I've been getting feedback, so I haven't heard about any offers, so didn't really think I was gonna call you back, but got to the point now where I know it sounds like we're just not getting the kind of activity on the house that we need. So I was calling to have you tell me what should we change the price to in order to get this thing sold. So he suggested a price, we put it at that price, and they got on for the next week and it sold. So he had zero communication with her directly, but he was at least fulfilling his promise that he had made to her, what he was going to do, and because of it, automatically got it sold. I'll tell you guys, I've had listings before. I'll go through it, and because I'm contacting them every single week and telling them what to expect and what we're going to do if what we're expecting doesn't happen, most of my sellers are the ones coming to me saying, Cameron, I think it's time for us to adjust the price. What do you think? And I'll have to tell them, yeah, I think that's probably a good idea right now. Or I will have people, I'll go several weeks without showings, but at least I'm contacting them. The place you'll get into the biggest problems is that when you have that listing and it's not getting shown and you're starting to get nervous and you're thinking, what do I tell them? I don't have anything to report. It's okay. Just call them up and tell them what you do know. Tell them what houses have come on the market the last couple of weeks. Tell them what you have been doing to sell the house. Because if you do that, you gotta realize, guys, that almost a third of the market out there doesn't sell. Even though we're in this hot market, almost 30% of houses never sell. And I think one of the biggest reasons why they don't sell is because in a lot of cases they have agents that are not in communication with the sellers. So at that time, when 6 months has gone by, and they're saying, all right, it's time to renew this listing, why would I relist with somebody that isn't gonna sell my house and that I don't think is really even working? Maybe Zeke is doing a great job, he's working his tail off, but he's just not communicating with that to the seller. So the communication with the sellers is in some cases the piece that causes people not to get paid. And if you screw that up, you can do everything else perfectly, if you screw that up, you're not gonna kinda get the results you want. So, all right, we're almost done. What ahas have you guys had? What are some of your takeaways from this class? Have you learned anything?
Remove liability from yourself and remove the liability assumption and set the expectation up front.
Remove the liability assumption, that sounds sweaty. You'd be in charge of helping to write the new night course. Good job, I like it. What else?
I'm gonna start working on my vendor list. You know, I have people, all over, you know, cause we've done remodeling stuff and stuff.
Oh,
I
good.
should just get them into a grid, so if somebody said, who do you use for a roofer, I can just go in there and look.
It's a big one. Cool, thanks, Emily, for sharing. I think it's the hand.
Oh, I didn't put my hand up.
Oh,
sorry.
Then never mind, no. I thought I saw a hand.
I think, yeah, definitely like getting my list of vendors and starting to focus more on my marketing plan, like kind of looking at other people's marketing plans as well.
Awesome, that's a big one. Yeah, all these things are gonna help you in that listing presentation. If you don't have that going into it, you're practicing on people that could be paying you a lot of money. Cool, one more.
What helps me was like, I know to ask a lot of questions and find out as much information from them as I can, but I got some really good, like, specific questions to ask them, so I could get back helpful information. That helped a lot.
Good, fantastic. All right, guys, any other questions? Yeah, you want to go over it? We have 2 or 3 minutes.
You got your marketing list for us?
Yes. Yep. Come back to my office and you can get Jason's email to you, so it's pretty simple.
What do you say to somebody who, while still being delicate of their previous agent, you kind of let them know that your house probably didn't sell because of the pictures?
I'm kind of telling that way. Your house didn't sell because of the picture. It's generally not just the picture that cause the house not to sell. What I like to do in situations like that, in any situation, I would like to ask them, why do you think the house didn't sell? What do you think?
So say, a picture of the cat lips, and that was all?
Wouldn't have been exactly my
No.
strategy.
The marketing was
Yeah, they left them all messy with, there was, I have a whole list of things that I'd love to go over with them, that I could.
Bring it up. So what I do is hit the points that, because if they tell you some of the things that you're gonna come already, you're just gonna confirm it. Say you're very intelligent, you recognize that stuff, you don't realize where the house can sell, and you're 100% right, those things need to change. You know, may I share some other things that I have some concern of, that I'd like to change, so that you get your house on this side.
Okay.
Go through the next ones. Because they might think, oh, it was the pictures, or it was, could be some of the other things, but maybe at the end of the day, the biggest thing was to say we're like $20,000 too high. I would have the price
But isn't that also kind of a listing agent's job, is to help steer their client to a realistic and reasonable price range so that they do sell their house?
Is it their job? Yes. Is it what they do? Very often no the case. Everybody hear what her comment was? Because this is massively important. Say that again.
Isn't it the listing agent's job to help steer them with the price so that it's reasonable and realistic?
Yeah. Number one, some agents don't know what that is. They're undertrained and they just think, sounds good to me, let's go ahead and listen. So number one, they don't know, they're ignorant. Number two, unfortunately, they know, but they don't have the skill set to be able to help their sellers understand that. They don't use the proper language and expectations, so they might say, and that's why a lot of times they don't call the sellers back. They get, we're screwed, we're too high, and I can stand up to them, and they get mad at me if I tell them anything other than, you're not gonna sell your house. So, is it? Yes, but that's why so many houses go unsold. So that is where you have a gold opportunity, is that a lot of people don't know how, or they just don't know how, they either don't know what they don't know, or they can't communicate what they know. Enter our opportunity so that we can go in and help these people, other people who didn't have it. Rick?
I was with Lee on a listing presentation, and the guy wanted to list his house for 1.2. Lease comps were 700.
Oh.
Yeah, and no idea where he got this 1.2 from, and just, I've been there, and, at least Lee was to the point of not wanting to work with him. And she said, you know, he's like, well, why would I listen for so much less? And she said, why would you listen for so much more? She said, I would rather disappoint you now than disappoint you later. So, you know, let's listen to the right price, and we won't have to adjust. He hasn't listed yet, with anybody.
When you get that, you gotta realize, guys, that the problem is that one of the easiest and most efficient ways to take yourself out of this business is to work with people that just suck your energy, and that's an example of someone who is. So you can gain all the skills. One of the greatest skills is recognizing when you shouldn't say yes to somebody. You might get someone who says, well, I mean, so-and-so would list my house for this much. Fantastic. Here's all the things I'm gonna do to say to that. Let's look at this guy's track record. Let's look what the comparables say.
She pulled up his listing, his friend of his, it was a name, and she said, let's pull him up, let's look at it. Oh, you sold 10 houses in 10 years. I sold that many last week.
Yeah, and some people are just gonna be really frustrated to work with, and it would be so, not just, I'd rather disappoint you, it's I'd rather save my sanity, so that I don't have this call reluctance to a lot of other people, because I hate working with people. So make sure some of the best clients you'll ever work with are the ones that you don't work with. That's good. Where have you been? Man.
Around.
You leave early, you come in late. No, I'm kidding. Okay, guys, hey, thanks for your time. If you have any questions, come find me. I'm happy to help in any way, and you guys have been a great class, so.
Hey, Kevin,